What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, joining me is the VP of Marketing at Spiro.ai. That is Kari Hanson. Kari, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jordan. Thanks for having
I
me.
am excited to have you on. Get into all things marketing. Specifically today, I think we're going to do a deep dive into data. But before we do that, I want to pass the mic to you and let you set the table for the listener. Who are you? Where do you come from? And how did you find your way into this crazy world of marketing?
Sure. Well, I actually went to a business school out in Boston. I'm originally from a small town in Montana. I frankly thought I was going to go into computer science, but the marketing classes were a lot more fun. And so I sort of stumbled into it. I started my career at a communications agency. So I did PR and branding. And then after about 10 years, I went to Zoom Info. I actually rebranded them as a business information search engine just as they were rolling out Bizzo, which was eventually acquired by LinkedIn. And then I went to a small security startup based in Texas called SellPoint. I was hire number 30. I originally started with their branding, and then I slowly took on customer marketing, and more of the team eventually became the VP of marketing, and then the VP of corporate marketing as we IPO'd 10 years later at 1.2 billion, which was pretty exciting to sort of build that brand. And then about 2 years ago, I went back into the startup world and joined Spiro. So I think I'm a startup girl at heart.
I love it. And it's cool to go through and see the entire growth cycles and stages going in with the company, and then obviously, hitting what is largely the goal for a lot of people in that IPO date. Very, very cool. So now you're at Spiro. Before we jump in, what does Spiro do? Let's give us that 30-second elevator pitch. I think that'll help as we get into the conversation.
Sure. So Spiro is a sales platform. We consolidate CRM capabilities with sales enablement and analytics, and we're driven by AI. So we sell into the supply chain, manufacturing, and customers like that. And our goal is really to take a very, frankly, mind-numbing, boring technology that everybody hates and make it useful to them.
Yeah, I love the call to action on your site is kill CRM. I definitely want to click that. So that that I like. Now we're gonna get into a data conversation, and I'm interested on actually that to start with. Did you have a different call to action before, like learn more, and then run some tests to be like, what's getting clicked more, and kill CRM comes out as like the absolute winner, or was that just somebody who was like, no, we're making a bold, we're gonna take a bold swing here and do some humorous copy.
Uh, well, we've always liked humor. We actually had several other CTAs. When they hired me 2 years ago, it was really about creating a category because that's what I did at Cellpoint, and then we built that category significantly. So when I came in, we talked about it, and we decided we wanted to kill the CRM category. So we thought we would do a little tongue in cheek, and not to age myself, but if anybody remembers when a small CRM company called Salesforce launched probably 20 plus years ago, they had a similar image with software because it was sort of, no software was their big mantra. And so we took a little tongue in cheek with the no CRM because everybody associates that image with, the big 500-pound gorilla, and we have a lot of fun with it. And frankly, salespeople hate CRM. So I thought it would be a fun campaign, and it has been hugely successful, and we've just embraced it as our mission, and people love it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, now let's jump in a little bit. I want to talk data with you. Really, as you get into a startup, right? And let's frame this that you're a company, let's say under 500 employees, and we're trying to use data, right? We're trying to use data to grow and make sure that we're identifying the right prospects or that we're doing things from a marketing perspective, that are quote unquote working. Um, I guess how do you philosophically look at the data for your marketing channels, or not philosophically, even just analytically? Like when you look at your channels, how are you looking at data and then taking out valuable insights, particularly when it relates to uh, pipeline assisted conversions? I'm interested to see kind of how that world, how you think about that world with regards to conversions and assisted conversions.
Sure. Well, so I think my view, over 20 plus year marketing career is that I came from the branding side, which is much more around the storytelling and the visual. But I've always believed that marketing is art influenced by data. So whether you are doing branding, you're doing PR, you're out there with your website, you always want the data to tell you what's working. And especially at a startup, you have a lot of finite resources, from a budget, from people, from the things that you can try. And so data becomes incredibly important because you want to do things that work the fastest and take the least amount of work. Because when you have a team of 1, 2, or 3 people and you have a very small budget, you just don't have the luxury of throwing a lot of that out there. And I think especially on the demand gen side, data comes at us at many ways. We look at the number of MQLs that come in, the number of leads before the MQLs, the SALs, the SQLs, the pipeline generated. And so I think this is where there's numbers and data that sort of flow, and you can sort of game the system however you want. But I prefer to take the approach of, let's look at what the data is telling us, and let's make sure that we're changing what we're doing so that we're moving the needle. So to me, I don't care if I'm blowing out my MQL number. I care if I'm feeding a pipeline that's turning into customers, and how quickly are they becoming customers. And so I think if you sort of change that mindset, this is also where some companies have marketing and sales are sort of co-opetition, if you will. And I think at Spiro, we take a very collaborative, marketing and sales works together, because my biggest number is how many deals do they close, because I'm the one that's sending them the leads. And so, if that means it's fewer numbers at the top of the funnel, but the quality is there, I think that's really good. And I think this is where data gives you the confidence that a lot of marketers don't have.
So, for a person, and I'm with you. But one thing I would ask, I'm curious to think about, like, what typically, I mean, there's obviously a lot of data, but the time horizon in which you would look at data to say something is working or something is not. And I'll give you an example. I do one podcast, get 20 downloads. If I looked at the data, this is not working. 2 podcasts not working, 10 not working, 50, okay, it's a wild success, right? And I knew when we started the show, I'm like, I'm going to commit to do 100 episodes, because I knew that was kind of my gut saying, like, to make it, have a proper data set, or to have something that I could make a decision off. That was going to be my not time horizon, but just output amount that I would have to hit. Do you have similar things when you're looking at, like, content marketing, or maybe a video strategy, particularly with startups who are pressed for resources? Like, I see sometimes that startups, they jump around and they're changing course every 3 minutes based on data, and not actually letting things play out. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on time horizon when it comes to marketing channels, for something like content marketing, and how do we take some of those initial efforts and then attach that proper time horizon?
Yeah, well, so I think it's a double-edged sword, or two sides of the coin, I guess, would be a more positive analogy. But I think, first of all, you have to think about your audience and your purpose. And so if you're doing a video and you're doing a podcast, that's for branding. And so I think if you're looking at branding, the data is very different. And that's where, I've always believed in, even at small startups, you can benchmark. So if you're doing, a video podcast, you're not going to get a lead the first one. If you do, that's gravy, but your goal is branding. And so what are you looking to do? Well, you might be looking to get your name out there. You might be looking to get people to your website. And then you need to find a similar company who had similar budgets, could be a competitor, it might not be a competitor, who has done that, and sort of look at what worked for them. And that gives you a benchmark. Doesn't mean you need to beat them. Doesn't mean that being less than them is something bad, but it gives you a benchmark to sort of see where you're flowing. And I think over time, on a branding, you have to commit. I've always believed you have to put at least 3 months in before a branding campaign goes off. On the flip side, when you're actually paying money for leads, you have to look at, it can be simple things of, if you have 3 different ad visuals or 3 different CTAs on your website, you can immediately see which one is getting the clicks. But you don't want to react right away, because the challenge is, are they getting the clicks because the CTA, the call to action, is better, or is it on a better page, or are they coming from a better page? And so this is where you have to look at data, not just that one point. So data is sort of everything correlated together. And when we look at our website, we can look at where is, you sort of start at the bottom of where are the most conversions happening, where are those people coming from, and then you sort of figure out what's the problem. And so if everybody's going to a certain page, then you start testing the wording or the color of the button, and you know what's going to get them when they're there. If they're coming to that page, you look at, well, where are they coming from? So we know, for example, we put customers on our website, it never converts. So someone goes to our customer page, let's send them to our product page, and then send them to our pricing page, which converts. And so you have to look at the data as a whole, not a data point. And I think that's where people really, they get hung up in the weeds. And I also think, to your point on timing, even when you're paying, you have to put some money in and some time in. If we buy, 2 years ago, we started buying ads in the morning brew we were cool before it was cool. And so, my view was, just in general, all of my experience, it takes about 5 touch points before somebody's going to do something. They might need to read about you, they might see an ad, they might see you on LinkedIn, but it takes about 5 times. And so we did these very expensive ad buys, but I told my team going in, I told the executive team going in, we have to commit to at least 3 of them so that my entire marketing campaigns, between that and everything else we're doing, can sort of build it, because we're a startup. The first time they see us, they might be like, that's interesting. The second time they see us, there might be the tire kickers of like, what is this Kill CRM? The third time they see us, somebody who is really relevant will start coming in, and then you start analyzing it, and it can grow over time. And I'll give you a really good comparison of why branding should take longer than a lead gen campaign, but they still need time, and that's LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is very successful for us in terms of branding and in terms of lead gen. And so I have 2 different campaigns going. One is specific lead gen. It goes to our ideal customers. It's an ad, frankly, that sponsored post says, are you getting sick and tired of CRM? We can help you. They fill it out. They fill out the form. It goes straight to our BDR team. We also have a branding campaign that pushes out more of the content marketing. How do you move forward? How do you modernize your sales platform? How do you get your team to want to pay attention to what's going on? How can a marketer use this technology? That drives people to our website. And the branding, it takes a couple months for it to build. So you have to give it, 2 or 3 months. And then you start seeing over time the website traffic. It spikes initially because no one has seen it. And then you realize some of them realize that's not really relevant. And then it sort of dips a little bit, but then it maintains. And then you can start seeing how well it's doing. And then importantly, you start seeing what's coming in from your website. Is it driving the right traffic? Because they would convert. On the flip side, I give it about a month for the lead gen side, and I can start seeing the types of leads that come in. And I see, well, that's working really well, but I need another couple of weeks to see, are those leads moving down the funnel? And then I can look at the fact that maybe it's the wrong titles. I can sort of dial a little bit. And now, we're 18 months into having that lead gen campaign. I know it's good. So now I can turn on a dime. If I start seeing a bunch of prospects getting rejected by the BDRs, if they're like, these are useless, I can go and I'll make a change quickly because I have enough data. I have enough sources that I can say, what, this isn't going to work. We're going to dial it down a little bit.
I love that. And for those listening, whenever you're going to do something, let's do exactly what Kari said here. And I like to break things into what's my leading, just literally leading, lagging metrics, and what's a leading or an output that's going to be leading, or a change or an ad campaign or a set of content. And then what's my predicted lag, right? Either based on like studies that I can find or our own internal data, or I'm just going to hey, I think the lag's going to be 6 months, right? For let's say SEO or something, or a social ad campaign. Maybe it's, hey, we think from first touch point to purchase is going to be like 45 days based on whatever holidays coming up. Like, okay, cool. So then that way we can go back and kind of correlate with our best guess, with the data to be like, what was lead, what was lag? And then I love that you brought up there too, is we get so obsessed as marketers and with pipeline, leads, because a lot of times it's the metric that's like the metric of success. But you know what the CEO cares about is sales. How many make it to the end? How many are at the finish line? And I think that we can lose sight of that sometimes. So I love that you brought that up on like how many prospects are getting over the goal line, and where do we have a bottleneck, a break point? Is it from the ad creative? Is it the landing page? Is it the BDR team is slow to respond? Is it whatever the factor is, right? And like going and analyzing that, but then once you have those benchmarks, like you said you can pivot, you can look, you can analyze now because you've been running this for some time on LinkedIn, that you can go and be like, if things start not working, you're like, wait, okay, where did we break, right? Are we still getting the same click through? Okay, we are. Like all of those things still happen, but the leads aren't good. Okay, is our targeting off? Like you can just kind of go point by point and then make a more a holistic view, I guess, of kind of like the output. So I love that you brought those up. Now, for our listeners who are in the B2B space, are you all are seeing a great success on LinkedIn? Are you doing any other channels, just out of curiosity?
We're seeing great success on LinkedIn. We are definitely doing other channels. I think that frankly the biggest frustration for me, marketing wise, I mean there are a lot of others in this pandemic, is trade shows were canceled, webinars, everyone has Zoom fatigue. There's just all of the options of a marketer have collapsed. And although we weren't doing trade shows, other companies who had $1 million budgets on trade shows suddenly took that money and put it online. And so towards the end of last year, it was really challenging on LinkedIn because you bid for these. And it's just like, on Google, you bid for ads, you have these really big companies that can come in and money's not a factor. And so, like the last 2 weeks of December, we just turned it off because there was no way we could compete with these companies. The challenge that we also had was we used to do the morning brew. We used to do the hustle. When the hustle was bought, the morning brew was acquired. The ad space has gotten much more expensive, but we used to be able to get last minute buys of, a advertiser fell through. If you could turn this around in 2 days, we'll give you 30% off. But so many of these bigger companies with, they just have the teams and the resources and there's nowhere else for them to go. It's really challenging for us. And so that's why we do some, we obviously do SEO, we do branding, we do some ad purchases in key newsletters, but LinkedIn has been the most consistent for us. And we've actually gotten really good at seeing in real time if the leads slow down or they speed up. If they speed up, we'll up our budget and I'll get most of my MQLs expected from the campaign in the first week of the month. I don't care. I'll triple the budget. And once my budget's done, I'll sort of dial it down because I can see it so quickly that I know, hey, this is working. Let's do more. Haven't seen a lead coming through for a while. Maybe we slow it down for a little bit. We can sort of pause it. And that's really where we can pay attention to it.
I love it. I love that having the keen eye to be able to make those changes very, very quickly. Kari, this has been awesome. Now, for anybody who wants to learn more about Spiro or connect with you online, where should they head?
Well, you can go to Spiro.ai. You can find our website. We have a really popular blog that especially salespeople love. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually I think I must have been the first Kari Hanson because I actually have the LinkedIn /Kari Hanson.
Amazing. That's awesome. Head over there. I will put links to both of those in the show notes page as well. So listeners, you can go and connect with Kari Hanson. I'm also the only Jordan Shelton, but if you see how my name's spelt, it makes a lot of sense. So we got some mystery letters in there. Kari, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. A ton of value that was shared with the listener.
That's great. Well, it's been a great conversation. I love talking numbers.
All righty. That's it, everybody. Thanks again for coming and listening to this episode, and I will catch you next time.